Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of The Angry Coach. Today, I am very excited to have Mr. Amit Gossain along with me. Amit is the managing director of Kone Elevators India. It's an organization that he's been at the helm of for the last 8+ years. Prior to this, Amit has had a fantastic corporate career in India, in Australia, and with some of the leading organizations. Amit contributes to the entire ecosystem as well. He is the co-chair of CII for Smart Cities. He's also been the ex-president at the Finland Chamber of Commerce. Amit, welcome to our show, The Angry Coach.
Thank you very much, Vivek, and very nice to connect with you. It's a great pleasure.
Likewise. Amit, as we start, I have a question for you. And my question is, what makes you angry?
Well, Vivek, what makes me angry is nothing or everything that does not work properly. But I must just kind of reframe this a little bit. Importantly, getting angry and showing your anger are two different things. One can get angry at very little things, but then showing your anger or not controlling your emotions is not the right approach. Managing emotions, particularly in a business environment, is extremely important, particularly anger, because in our business interactions, we need to ensure that all the challenges and setbacks that are inevitable are well controlled. They can test our patience, trigger negative emotions, and frustration as well. That is what anger is all about. But if you actually do show your anger, it creates a problem with others as well. One, of course, is not good for your own health, but it is also not good for other people. So it's very important that while you might get angry, it is important to actually control that anger.
Very fair. And one is getting angry, and the second is showing that anger. Is that correct?
That's right. Getting angry and showing that anger. And I'll tell you why. I'll just expand on this. If you show the anger or the stress and frustration, you pass the same stress to your teams. And if you pass the same stress to your teams, the motivation level and the performance of your team goes down. Right? So there is a way of putting everything in the right perspective. And therefore, controlling your emotions and not showing your anger is extremely important.
I think that's such a fair thing. So, what I'm hearing from you is that if you get angry or if you display too much of anger based emotions or negative emotions, then the energy or the enthusiasm of your team also starts going down and they don't play their A game. It erodes down to perhaps a B or a C level.
That's exactly right, and that's very important. To ensure that they're all motivated and working on their task in with a very positive mindset.
As a leader, and I work with a lot of leaders, right? And one thing I have noticed is they're all very passionate about whatever they are doing, they're energetic, they want to do the best things. Now, in the process, sometimes leaders don't see their teams performing to the same level, right? Lesser motivation levels, maybe a person just wants to skip work or does not have that same passion for outcomes. And I have seen leaders lose anger or control over them in those scenarios. What would your thoughts be, Amit? What would your advice to such leaders be?
I'd put it in two different ways. One is, the team performing very well as one unit, and second is some of the individuals not performing well. Now, some of the individuals who are working extremely hard, trying to work as smart as they can, and not able to perform really well is something that is not controllable by them. They can't control it. Then you have people who actually can work harder, can work better, but choose not to do it. That's a different kind of people. So you need to find out why they're not actually working to their full potential. Is it there is no passion? Is it that they might be a disgruntled lot, and you can find a few in every large organization? You need to go to the basics of it. And for people who don't want to perform, that's a problem. But people who want to perform and work hard, they should be given all the right opportunities to upgrade themselves because of their passion, their hard work. They will come up. Ultimately, you can study everything, you can be very smart, but then hard work pays. Okay. So when somebody says, do you like hard work or smart work? I say both, because hard work is important. Hard work is all about passion, right? So that's my take on this. Now there are individuals who are extremely good performers, highly energetic, highly motivated, and you can easily filter them out. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you very much. I'm curious about your personal journey in this entire space. Have you always had a more Zen like appearance to yourself? Have you had a journey that has made you a lot more emotionally calm and stable? Could you share your journey around building emotional intelligence with us?
Vivek, everybody in this world goes through some ups and downs, right? And you learn from those ups and downs. There are people who choose to learn, there are people who don't choose to learn. Now, my journey has also been very similar to everybody else. I worked in India, I worked overseas, I learned, I captured, and I tried to take that learning. My end objective was to perform well in my job. And I tried to do something which was interesting for me, something that I liked. And that's important. So, when you are in a working environment, either you must start liking that job and be passionate about that job, or you must already have liked that job to be in there.
Hmm.
There are cases where you might actually be given a job which you may not like. Can you make that a likable job? Can you start studying about that job and make it interesting for yourself, so that in the morning when you get up, you really want to go to the office or your workplace, these days hybrid as well in some cases, and really wanting to work and excel. And that's important. That is a learning that comes from time, from experience. And I would say that, if you look at Kone as an organization, I see highly charged up people, right from my management team to all our technicians and service executives who are so passionately working for the customer. And I can tell you, if not 100%, 99.9% of them are highly charged up and motivated and like the work that they do. And that's the culture we've tried to bring into Kone as well. And I think
Hmm.
we built that culture quite successfully.
Hmm. And a lot of it is also by staying calm, steady, and focusing on the outcome versus on letting emotions take over for individuals.
Yeah, see, staying calm is part of the job. You remember many years ago, some of your managers would actually get angry just to show their anger and anguish, right? They, they probably were not that angry, but just to tell you or give you a message that, look, you're not in the right direction. But these days, I think people have become very sensitive, more sensitive than in the past, right? So it's important to deal with different people differently. And these days, I think it's best not to show that anger or emotions, like I said, because if you show that anger, especially if a managing director or a CEO shows that anger or frustration, he's definitely going to pass it on to the next line, and then it goes to the next line and so on. So even if things are not done too well, even if it makes you a little angry, you can control your anger, because you will actually eventually get happiness by not getting angry, and then try and not pass on that stress, and then people will start working happily, and they will not pass on the stress to the other people, and down the line. So that's very important, to control your emotions. Is it something that yoga will teach you? I don't know. Everybody's got their own style of managing anger. Is it just that you have to be a little quiet and patient and listen, and maybe just pause for some time? For some people that works. One of my friends said he told me, a CEO of a big company says, I count till 20 if I'm very angry. I don't say anything. So there are different styles. But there are some very odd cases where you do get angry and you do react a little bit. It's best, but it's best to control the emotions.
So true. I remember during my starting up years, the angry manager was supposed to be the best one. The बड़े बहुत गुस्सा होता है तो सारा काम कर लो जल्दी जल्दी से kind of
Yeah.
things. But you're right. I think workforce has changed very significantly.
Yes. Yes.
What would your tips be to people who are trying to elevate their emotional intelligence or people who are trying to be more calm, Amit? What would some of your suggestions to this audience be?
I think firstly is be patient. That cannot be taught. You have to learn to be patient, and sometimes it comes naturally. Also, be very mindful of what you're doing and the impact it's going to have. That's extremely important. Third thing, I'd say that have a very open communication with the person that's or with the team that's not performing to your satisfaction. Maybe there are reasons why they're not able to do it, and they're genuine reasons. And maybe there is a formula to ensure that they work well. Have empathy, extremely important again. And I think other thing is when you're talking to your teams, celebrate their success. Okay, they might fail in certain areas, but once you start celebrating their success, that failure rate will come down, and that will not make you angry. That anger will be gone. Also, look at elements of happiness in an organization. There is a difference between being angry and being assertive. Assertiveness is definitely required. Okay, so what are those elements that make an organization as a whole happy? You can't keep every individual happy at every moment, right? But what is it culturally that makes that organization happy? I can tell you, we have a culture in Kone. We have four big pillars. It's care, it's collaboration, it's courage, and it's customer. Not in that order, but ultimately we're all working for the customer. We should not forget. Secondly, we all should have the courage to face the customer or our people and tell them, look, this is how we need to work together as a team to ensure that our customer is successful, because ultimately that's our objective. Thirdly, collaboration, working together gives happiness, right? And the first one I said was care. If every employee cares for each other, you will find that there'll be a good happiness index within the organization.
Correct.
So that's important, I think, from an organization perspective. And I think even for individuals, my view is if they just follow that pillars of that culture, I mean, we built it, but they can be very common as well.
I love these four C's: care, courage, collaboration, and customer. Oh my God, it is no wonder great organizations are built with these right pillars in mind. Thank you so much for sharing this. These are good tips. Amit, I'm going to shift our conversation a little bit, right? And from this topic of emotional intelligence, I'd love to switch the topic to Amit, if that's okay with you. Um, I'd like for our audience to know more about your career journey. What did you experience, and what contributed to your success as a CEO of one of the largest companies in elevators?
Look, I think what success is. Everybody's got their own definition of success, and it's all relative. So, firstly, there are very very successful people that you like to aspire and be look up to them, and I do the same. I look at various political or global industry leaders. I look up to our bosses, sometimes our global CEOs, and so on and so forth. But from my journey perspective, we all start somewhere. After my engineering and my master's in management and systems, I thought, it's best to work for an industrial environment. Um, and of course, with L&T initially, which is a great organization in India, they do an extremely good job, and then moved on to Australia for one of the largest tractor manufacturing and construction equipment manufacturing company. And for about 10 years being with them and learning a lot and growing there, also learning culturally about some global cultures was extremely important. So for me, that really worked, globalizing myself and learning global cultures. How they operate. They're very different. So when I started there, I remember the HR director said, Amit, this is the position that's there, but we cannot take you here because you're not culturally, you do not understand Australia well. I said, well, my English is okay, so why can't I understand Australia? And, when I started working and got into a few months in Australia and started working there, I realized that, culturally we're quite a little different. Of course, now it's much more globalized, but I'm talking at that time. The style of English is also different. So you need to understand what the other person's saying and they need to understand what you're saying. So I think I got into that pretty quickly because I wanted to learn. And I gelled well with the entire team, from different backgrounds. Australia is very multicultural. We've got, Australian citizens who could be born and brought up in Australia, or you could have people migrated from various parts of the world, including India. So that important to gel with everybody and collaborate with everybody and work with everybody. So that was a very key learning for me, really. And I was fortunate to grow quite well there, because I think I could gel, and I think also I could do my work nicely, and I enjoyed what I did. So that was very key, because when I learned about how the organization works, I started enjoying. Then I came to India, and Scott's construction was, at that time bought by JCB, and it was just a newly formed company. And great learning. I was heading marketing, and my task was to build the brand, and I was doing marketing, sales, and business development, and then build the network and ensure that the network is happy. And they've actually we did try very hard to build a great network for the brand and build a good brand around it. So I had a fantastic team, and I'd say one of the most interesting um, 10 years of building a brand, and where a brand was being established in India. Now of course it's almost become a household name, and they continue to grow and do really well. So that was a good thing. And I was also heading uh, the Construction Equipment Association as president, with a great team around me from different companies of the same industry, which was also very interesting for me because we could all work together for the cause of the industry. Now, while we are competitors outside, we were all friends working towards the common goal of the industry. Of course, not talking about each other's competitiveness and so on, but talking what's good for the industry. So that was a great learning. While I was a member of that group, and then I became the president and so on and so forth, and I still like that. And then when I came to Kone, this was a truly multicultural organization globally. Truly, and Finnish companies are known to have high integrity, and and that was the thing which I was looking forward to, and very transparent and extremely good environment to work. Now, I really thought we need to work on few things, and there is a huge, I'd say, uh, a collaboration between the global, the Asia Pacific, the India teams, etc., that work together to achieve the success of the customer. So my key learning again was, what is it that I need to do as the managing director of the company for all our employees, so that they're all working for our customer and the success of the customers. There are a lot of things we learned from what is happening globally and how we could make our company great. And there are a lot of local elements that we had to add on, because again, India is culturally very different. The Make in India push, which has been happening, we set up one of the largest factories in South Asia for elevators. We set up strong teams, and ultimately everybody today works for the happiness of the customer. So my key learning from there was, how do you make a strong culture? How do you work with your teams to ensure that the culture that you're trying to build is implemented? Okay. And how do you ensure that everybody is has the same direction, right? And once you do that, it's not about whether you are leading or not leading, or making profits or not making profits. That is a subset. It will automatically come. If your company is great, you're working for the success of the customers are happy, the employees are happy, and I say happy employees is equal to happy customers is equal to happy stakeholders. You know, saying that, so that made a big difference to the ways of working. And we have a lot of youngsters that join our organization. How do you induct them? How do you actually inject the culture of the organization? How do you learn from them? Because they're all, some of them are technically so qualified, and they come from the new generation, that you need to learn from them as well, right? And how do you actually implement some of the things they're talking about? So that was a very interesting phase, and they've all been my learning. So you learn from everything and everybody, basically.
We learn from everything and everybody. I also like the fact that you have really built your career one after the other, right? From L&D to your stint in Australia. Culture was a very important aspect of whatever you talked about. And as a leader, now you are building that culture. Um, I'm very curious. Were there any beliefs, any thoughts that always have been your anchors or guiding forces or directions that you live by, stay on, or that guide you?
Yeah, so few things, of course, I need to talk about is listening.
Listening.
Yeah, so when you say even to control anger, which was a real subject, you need to be a strong, good listener, an empathetic listener. So can I say you need to also be inspirational, okay? Because I think a lot of people would just follow what the MD is saying, especially in a country like India, okay, and they'll follow their manager and the leaders, etc. So it's very important to ensure that you walk the talk, okay. Uh, you also, I think there are two things. One is you don't lay the blame on anybody as a person. It can be a process. And of course, if there are weak links, you need to remove those weaknesses within the system, make them the strengths, and try and see how you can work on it. So that is the key direction for me. Ultimately, we all need to have a goal. Our goal is not really numbers. Our goal is to make our customers successful. Our goal is to win with our customers and make sure that that goal is achieved through every employee of the organization.
Wow. Right here is such a powerful series of lessons that you've just now given. I'm going to pick up one by one, and if I can double click inside them. Amit, you talked about listening, and this term called empathy keeps coming up in your conversations. I remember in the earlier one also you mentioned empathy. This one also you mentioned empathy. You also brought in this factor of one has to identify the weak links and see how we can make them our strengths. It's something that while people talk about, but it's mostly lip service. Any thoughts around building empathy as a culture in our organization, or where do leaders go wrong when we need to show empathy?
You know, when you look at an organization, it will certainly have some ups and downs. We've kind of built a strong brand in India, and that's taken a lot of years before me and during my time, and it will continue this process. But you need to understand what what are the failures when we fail, why we are failing, okay? And you need to understand, and that's not to blame anybody. That is to find the reasons so that you can correct them. Okay, now I'll give you an example. We all went through a big COVID cycle. So, was that a time to say, okay, let's look at COVID now? Business is down big time, real estate is not there, elevators not selling as much. Should we look at You know, should we look at some form of employee reduction, some form of cost reduction? Of course, cost reduction is there. There are a lot of unnecessary things for that period of time that we were doing for that period of time. Why I'm saying that is they were necessary a year before, but they're probably unnecessary now. Is it important to spend money on brand building, for example, right? When we were hit with COVID, it's best that we last resort would be to, take action on employees. But the employees themselves come forward and work a way to create business together. That was a time when we would actually, I remember 3 or 4 times a week we would, because we'd be sitting at home and having virtual meetings on how to ensure safety of our employees. How to, that safety was the key thing. I gave video messages of safety and so on and so forth. A lot of internal communication. Customer sites were closed, so it was more to motivate the teams and say, look, we'll come out of it. We thought it would be 4 months, we thought it would be 5 months. It kept going for a little longer. But we knew we'll be out of it one day. We knew that the world has to move. This will go. So I'm just giving you an example. Was that a failure? That wasn't a failure. You could say, look, our business is going down and you need to take some critical actions, remove employees. Or the other way was to say, how can we generate some other business? How can we cut costs so that we are maintaining our, so that we're still viable to run the business? And that's all we looked at. And I'm just not saying from an India perspective that, of course, we very seriously looked at, because India was at that time in big trouble. But even globally, they were looking at it from a Kone perspective with the same elements. We gave laptops in everybody's home so that they could work. As another way of generating things. We went more into innovation for the future. We started looking at innovative ways. We started looking at how do we now support the technicians and our service executives so that they could reach the customers, so that their elevators were not stuck.
Right.
So we started looking at things and making that an opportunity. And of course, the government was running this big vaccination drive. We right from day one started asking our employees, let's go for it. While later, of course, the government also started in a way forcing people, which was the right thing to do. We'd already done it. We are counting people who had not taken vaccinations and why. So I think it's important that you can look at success or a failure in two different ways. You can look at success and say, look, this is the elements that made me or made a company successful. Let's just keep following it. But world changes. Or you can look at a failure and say, look, we failed. We can't do this anymore. Let's stop. Or you can say, how do we change this failure into an opportunity? Right? Is there anything else that we can do? And there are always ways to come out of things and do better.
I feel like the way you express this, we look at things that we're not good at, and then we challenge ourselves. How do I become better at it? How do I become the best at it? And this challenger mindset is something that you see is pervasive. It's with you, and you try to flow it with the rest of your organization as well.
Yeah.
I also loved your thought around let's make it about the process and not the people. So how can I improve the process? If something is not going wrong, let's not pick up a warm body and just kind of start blaming that one person, but let's figure out what led to this, and then eliminate the weak links, so to speak of, in that sense.
Yeah.
Amit, you are a senior leader now, but I'm sure you've also had your career journey over these different companies. Have there been moments where you felt unhappy, depressed, or oh my God, where am I stuck? Or been in a career, hit a glass ceiling of some sorts?
I think I didn't look at my career that way. I kind of, there can be glass ceilings in many areas, but that's not how I look at it. I just looked at it whether I'm enjoying and learning. As long as, I was continuing to learn, that is good enough. I did some job rotations for learning, and that was important. So it wasn't that I want to be just a CEO and get there or become that's just a when you follow a process that happens. There are people who would like to be subject matter experts, data scientists. They wouldn't like to lead a company. There are other people who would like to lead a company. There are other people who would want to be number 2 or number 3, or less stressed, right? So everybody's career perspective is slightly different. And in many countries overseas which are well developed, there are people who would like to also have a good work-life balance, and these days it's there across the world. So you look at it differently. I wouldn't say that I was not annoyed at all. Everybody's career has some kind of annoyance at some stage, which could be genuine. But then you start changing and thinking from the other person's point of view. That's important, and you see why things did not happen as you wanted it, because the other person is thinking slightly differently for a very logical reason. Okay. Now, and that is important. When you start doing that, then you think, okay, I'm doing a great job, I think, and if my boss is saying I'm doing a good job, I'm actually doing okay, then I need to keep working and keep improving. But I took the opportunity to always talk to my boss and say, look, I need to learn more. How do I do it? And then I would give it some gap. And if there were opportunities that would come my way from a learning perspective, I'd do that, because that is expansion of one's career and knowledge.
So, fun and learning in a certain way became your driving forces. And that's what you kept seeking. That's what kept your career very fresh and you very fresh in those jobs because you're clearly learning something new or the other. And that just helps. I also like the fact that what you mentioned is you drove this learning with managers. For example, you asked them, hey, listen, I want to seek a new learning opportunity. Do you have a newer role? Do you have something which can help me expand my horizon? Is that correct?
That's right. It could be a horizontal. It doesn't have to be vertical all the way. That's important. A learning opportunity is not always a vertical growth. It's very difficult to just sit in one place and say, look, I'd like to just keep growing. You need to expand. So that horizontal learning, either a shift from one job to another, or taking on an extra responsibility, and maybe or moving horizontally. That a job rotation, for instance, that gives a lot of energy. A new job gives a different perspective within the same organization, right? Now, if you look at my immediate management team or myself, we've got those opportunities to generally keep expanding and doing different things. But people who are fixated on roles, if there is somebody who's got to sell one part of the product and that's all he does, he might be enjoying it a lot, may not want a horizontal learning. He might be happy in the city he is in, that's fine. But the other person might say, okay, I need a little bit of a vertical improvement, but I need to actually see horizontally and learn something else. I have marketing people moving to sales and sales people moving to marketing. Throughout my career, I've seen that, or moving to product development, or moving to the factory. That's all learning. So if you keep expanding and learning, I think that gives you the next step.
That's a
Then
very
you
good
are,
insight.
then you earn your vertical upgrade.
Then you earn your vertical upgrade. That's a very good insight. I would agree with you. I love the fact that, hey, listen, don't look at growth just as a horizontal growth. So, as a vertical growth, look at growth as horizontal as well. Those are newer opportunities for you to learn and make your mark at different places. And suddenly, the right doors and the right opportunities will open up for you.
That's right. And Vivek, I must say, horizontally, if you look at our organization, we have newly created roles, we have newly created products that we are launching in the market, services, solutions. We have what we call 24/7 connected services where IoT connects everything. So a salesperson who's actually selling elevators also learns about 24/7 and cloud connectivity and starts selling that as well. So that
Correct.
automatically we try and expand everybody's role, right? And that is what's required by the business for the customer, and that's what the customer requires as well. So that's an automatic way of expanding people's role. But then there are other areas where jobs are created and people apply for them. So it's well known that if somebody takes job rotation, the rate of attrition is much lower if you have a good job rotation, uh, you know kind of policy in the organization.
So you're saying that as we encourage our employees to go for job rotations, for horizontal growth, there is a lot less attrition as well because people are learning. And as people are learning, they're fresher, they are more alive and alert versus getting into a daily treadmill of their everyday tasks.
Exactly, and they enjoy themselves. And then there is an
Correct.
automatic expansion of the role that happens through the system because we start
Correct.
launching products and services.
Correct. And as leaders, also, we've got a responsibility to make sure the organization keeps expanding by offering customers value addition, newer products, services, etc. And as we do that, uh, people will naturally have to expand because, hey, there are newer things to be done, and that adds to their learning as well.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Wow. This is very inspiring and this is very um, elevating for a lot of learners. I definitely know this. Amit, I know we've overshot our time, but if I can have 5 more minutes of your time,
No.
I want to tap into your brains on leading leaders, right? So you yourself are leading people who are perhaps leading different functions, business units, etc. As a leader of leaders, what do you tell yourself? What is your core job at your organization?
So my core job is really, one can say it's profitability, or but that or ensuring your revenues or sales happen and ensuring a very smooth functioning of the organization. That's all a given, right? What it is to set a clear direction and to ensure that the entire team follows that direction and they all work collaboratively, with care, with courage, and for the customer, right? So that's my real sole objective, and to make it in such a way that there is happiness within the organization. People are highly charged up, motivated to do their jobs with a very clear job description of each.
This is such a good input and a closure. Before we wrap up, Amit, any advice you'd like to give to listeners on what should they be investing in themselves? What should they be doing to move up in their organizations?
I think the real advice is that you don't look at just moving up. You need to move horizontally and gain some knowledge on various functions within an organization. If you're working for a corporate, learn, absorb, work with each other, collaborate, and that's going to give you an automatic vertical movement. But more importantly, also ensure that whatever you're doing, bring enjoyment and enjoy what you're doing,
Bring
and ensure
enjoyment and joy in what you're doing.
enjoying what you're doing and ensuring that you are working for the same direction that the company has set for themselves overall.
Excellent. So, horizontal growth, enjoy what you're doing, and make sure you are aligned to the organization's directions as well, and therefore create a collaborative environment. Amit, for your time and for this extremely insightful conversation, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vivek, and very nice speaking to you.
Likewise. Thank you, Amit.
Thank you.